Calmness is not something you find outside. It is something you build within. Most people believe peace will come when life becomes easier, when problems disappear, when people finally understand them. But life does not follow your expectations. It moves as it wishes. And if your mind is tied to every change, every word, every moment, then your peace will always be fragile. So the real question is not, how do I control life? The real question is, how do I control myself within life? Your mind is like water. When disturbed, it cannot reflect clearly. When still, everything becomes visible. Truth becomes visible. Wisdom becomes visible. Even solutions you were desperately searching for, they were always there, hidden beneath the noise. But stillness does not come by accident. It comes through training. When anger arises, most people follow it. When fear appears, they obey it. When stress knocks, they welcome it inside and give it power. This is a lack of discipline, not of the world but of the mind. You must learn to pause. Between what happens and how you respond, there is a space. In that space lies your freedom. If you rush, you lose it. If you stay aware, you expand it. Breathe and observe. You are not your anger. You are not your fear. You are the one witnessing them. And when you understand this deeply, emotions lose their control over you. Calmness is not weakness, it is mastery. Anyone can react, anyone can shout, anyone can lose control. But to remain steady when everything around you is unstable, that is true strength. Do not try to silence the storm outside. That is not your power. Instead, become the mountain that the storm cannot move. Accept what you cannot control. Resistance creates suffering. Acceptance creates clarity. And from clarity, wise action is born. When your mind is calm, your decisions are precise. Your words carry weight. Your presence brings peace not only to yourself, but to others around you. So train daily, not only when life is hard. Train when life is easy. Sit in silence. Watch your thoughts. Understand your patterns. Strengthen your awareness. Because when the difficult moments arrive and you will not panic. You will not break. You will stand firm. A calm mind is not built in comfort. It is built in discipline. And remember this, the world will test you, not to destroy you, but to reveal whether you have trained your mind or neglected it. So choose wisely. Because in the end, it is not the situation that defines your life, it is the state of your mind within it. Awareness is where everything begins, yet it is often the most overlooked practice. Most people move through life unconsciously, pulled in different directions by thoughts, emotions, and reactions they do not even notice forming. They believe they are thinking, but in reality, they are being thought. They believe they are choosing, but they are simply reacting. Without awareness, the mind becomes a place of noise, confusion, and endless disturbance. To become calm in every situation, you must first learn to observe your mind rather than be controlled by it. This sounds simple, but it requires deep practice. When a thought arises, the natural tendency is to follow it, to believe it, to let it shape your mood and actions. A single negative thought can quickly turn into worry, then fear, then stress. Before you realize it, your inner state has been completely taken over. But if you are aware, you will catch the thought at its beginning. You will see it as just a thought, not a command, not a truth, just a passing event in the mind. This shift changes everything. When you observe your thoughts, you create a space between you and them. In that space, there is clarity. In that space, there is choice. Instead of reacting instantly, you begin to respond wisely. You stop feeding unnecessary emotions. You stop giving energy to what does not serve you, and slowly, your mind begins to settle. Awareness is not about stopping thoughts. It is about understanding them. The mind will always produce thoughts, just as the heart continues to beat. But you do not have to become involved in every thought that appears. Imagine sitting by a river, watching the water flow. Each thought is like a leaf passing by. Some are pleasant, some are disturbing, but none of them require you to jump into the water. You can simply watch them come and go. This practice requires patience. In the beginning, you will forget. You will get carried away by emotions, by reactions, by old habits. But the moment you realize it, that moment is awareness returning, and that moment is powerful. Do not judge yourself for losing awareness. Instead, gently bring your attention back, again and again. Over time, this awareness becomes stronger. You start noticing patterns in your thinking. You see how certain situations trigger the same reactions. You begin to understand yourself more deeply, not just your strengths, but your weaknesses, your fears, your attachments. This understanding is not meant to criticize you. It is meant to free you, because once you see clearly, you are no longer trapped. A person without awareness is like a puppet, moved by invisible strings. But a person with awareness begins to cut those strings, one by one. They are no longer controlled by anger, because they see it forming. They are no longer overwhelmed by fear, because they recognize its illusion. They are no longer shaken by external events, because their stability comes from within. Calmness is not something you force. It is something that naturally arises when awareness is present. When you are aware, you are not lost in the past or anxious about the future. You are here, in this moment, grounded and steady. So train yourself to watch your mind, not occasionally, but continuously. In conversation, in difficulty, in silence. The more you observe, the less you react. And the less you react, the more calm you become. In the end, awareness is the light that removes the darkness of the mind. Without it, you will always be searching for peace. With it, you will realize that peace was always within your reach. Your breath is one of the most powerful tools you possess. Yet it is often ignored because it is always with you. From the moment you are born until your last moment, it stays by your side, quietly supporting your life. But beyond keeping you alive, your breath holds the key to your inner state. When you learn to guide your breath, you begin to guide your mind. Observe yourself in moments of stress or anger. Your breath becomes fast, shallow, and uneven. It reflects the chaos within you. Now observe yourself when you are peaceful and relaxed. Your breath becomes slow, deep, and steady. This is not a coincidence. The mind and breath are deeply connected. When one changes, the other follows. Most people allow their emotions to control their breathing, but a wise person does the opposite. They use their breathing to influence their emotions. When a difficult situation arises, the first thing you must do is return to your breath. Not to escape the situation, but to stabilize yourself within it. If you lose control of your breath, you will lose control of your mind. And if you lose control of your mind, your actions will follow that disturbance. Take a slow, deep breath in, and then gently release it. Do it again, with awareness. As you breathe in, feel the air entering your body. As you breathe out, feel the tension leaving you. This simple act brings you back to the present moment. It interrupts the chain of uncontrolled reactions. The breath acts as an anchor. When your thoughts begin to race, when your emotions start to rise, you can hold on to this anchor to steady yourself. It does not remove the storm outside, but it prevents the storm from taking over inside you. But this practice is not only for difficult moments. If you wait until you are overwhelmed, it becomes harder to regain control. You must train your breath daily, in calm moments, so that it becomes natural, in challenging ones. Sit quietly for a few minutes each day, and simply observe your breathing. Do not force it at first. Just notice its rhythm. Then gradually begin to deepen it. Let each inhale be full, and each exhale be complete. As your breath slows down, your mind will also begin to slow down. You may notice something important. When your breath becomes steady, your thoughts lose their intensity. The same problems that once felt overwhelming begin to appear more manageable. This is the power of a regulated breath. It does not change the situation, but it changes your relationship with it. There is also wisdom in the pause between breaths. That brief moment after you inhale and before you exhale, or after you exhale and before the next inhale, in that pause, there is stillness. When you become aware of that stillness, you begin to touch a deeper level of calm that is not dependent on anything external. In time, your breath becomes more than just a physical process. It becomes a guide, a teacher. It reminds you to slow down when you are rushing. It reminds you to stay present when your mind drifts away. It reminds you that no matter how intense a moment feels, you always have the ability to return to balance. A person who has mastered their breath carries calmness wherever they go. In conflict, they remain composed. In pressure, they remain clear. In uncertainty, they remain steady. Not because life is easy, but because they have learned how to regulate their inner world. So do not underestimate something so simple. Your breath is always available, always ready to support you. All it asks is your awareness. When you learn to breathe with intention, you are no longer at the mercy of your emotions. You become the one who leads, rather than the one who is led. And in that leadership, calmness naturally follows. Attachment is one of the quietest sources of inner disturbance. It does not always appear as something negative. In fact, it often disguises itself as desire, ambition, love, or expectation. But when you look deeper, you will see that attachment is the mind holding tightly to a specific outcome and refusing to accept anything else. And from that grip, tension is born. When you become attached to how things should be, you begin to resist how things actually are. You create a gap between reality and expectation, and in that gap, frustration grows. You start to feel anxious when things are uncertain, angry when things go wrong, and disappointed when life does not follow your plan. Not because life is against you, but because your mind is unwilling to flow with it. To train your mind to be calm, you must learn the art of letting go, not of effort, but of attachment to results. This does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you stop working hard or pursuing your goals. It means you give your best with full sincerity, but you do not tie your peace to the outcome. You act with purpose, but you release the need to control what happens next. Consider how much of your stress comes from things that are not in your control. Other people's opinions, unexpected changes, timing, results. These are all influenced by countless factors beyond your reach. Yet the mind insists on holding them tightly, as if tension itself could shape reality. But tension only disturbs you, it does not improve the outcome. When you loosen this grip, something shifts within you. You begin to act more freely, more clearly. Without the pressure of attachment, your mind becomes lighter. You are no longer burdened by constant worry about what might happen. Instead, you focus fully on what you can do in this moment. Detachment brings clarity. When you are not blinded by expectation, you can see situations as they truly are. You make better decisions, not driven by fear or desperation, but guided by understanding. Even if things do not go your way, you remain stable. You learn, you adjust, and you continue forward without losing your inner balance. Many people fear detachment because they believe it will make them indifferent or unmotivated. But true detachment is not indifference, it is inner freedom. It allows you to engage with life deeply, without becoming lost in it. You still care, you still strive, but your peace is no longer dependent on success or failure. Look at nature. A tree does not resist the changing seasons. It does not cling to its leaves when autumn arrives. It lets go, not in defeat, but in trust. And because of this, it remains strong through every cycle. In the same way, when you release attachment, you align yourself with the natural flow of life. This practice requires awareness and honesty. You must observe where your attachments lie. Notice the moments when you feel disturbed. There is always something you are holding on to. Ask yourself, what am I expecting? What am I afraid to lose? In that questioning, you begin to see the root of your unrest. Then gently remind yourself, you can give your best without needing to control everything. Over time, this understanding becomes a habit. You start to approach life with a calm confidence. You do what is right, and you allow the results to unfold. You stop forcing, stop resisting, and start trusting. And in that trust, there is peace. Because when you are no longer attached to every outcome, nothing has the power to shake you deeply. Success does not inflate you. Failure does not break you. You remain grounded, steady, and clear. This is the freedom that detachment brings, not the absence of effort, but the absence of inner struggle. And in that freedom, calmness becomes your natural state. One of the greatest sources of inner conflict is resisting what already exists. Life unfolds in ways you do not always expect, and yet the mind constantly argues with reality. It says, this should not be happening, or things must go my way. But no matter how strongly you resist, reality does not change simply because you reject it. Instead, that resistance creates tension, frustration, and suffering within you. To develop a calm mind, you must understand the difference between acceptance and resignation. Acceptance is not giving up, it is not weakness. It is the clear recognition of what is present in this moment, without denial or emotional struggle. It is saying, this is the situation as it is. From that place of clarity, you gain the ability to respond wisely. When you refuse to accept reality, your mind becomes clouded. Emotions take over, and your ability to think clearly is weakened. You may react impulsively, make poor decisions, or waste energy fighting something that cannot be changed. But when you accept the situation first, your mind settles. You stop arguing internally, and that stillness allows you to see what can actually be done. There are always two parts to any situation: what you cannot control and what you can influence. Wisdom lies in recognizing the boundary between them. There are things in life that are simply beyond your control: other people's behavior, unexpected events, the past, and sometimes even the immediate outcome of your efforts. No matter how much you worry or resist, these things will remain unchanged. Holding on to them only drains your energy and disturbs your peace. Then there are things within your reach: your actions, your choices, your effort, and most importantly, your response. This is where your true power lies. When your mind is calm, you can focus your energy on these areas instead of wasting it on what you cannot change. Acceptance creates that calm. Imagine trying to navigate through a storm while denying that the storm exists. You would be unprepared, frustrated, and lost. But if you first acknowledge the storm, you can adjust your path, protect yourself, and move forward wisely. The storm may still be there, but your approach to it becomes skillful instead of reactive. This principle applies to every aspect of life. When challenges arise, instead of immediately resisting or complaining, pause and acknowledge the situation. Feel whatever emotions come, but do not let them control you. Allow them to pass, just like clouds moving across the sky. Then ask yourself, what can I do now that is helpful and constructive? This simple shift changes your entire experience. Instead of feeling trapped, you begin to feel empowered. Instead of reacting blindly, you respond with intention. Even in difficult circumstances, you maintain a sense of balance because you are no longer fighting reality, you are working with it. This does not mean you accept injustice or remain passive in the face of problems. It means you act from a place of clarity rather than emotional chaos. When action is needed, you take it with focus and purpose. When patience is required, you wait without agitation. Both are forms of strength. Over time, this practice builds resilience. Life will continue to present challenges, but they will not shake you as deeply. You will understand that not everything is within your control, and that is not something to fear, it is something to accept. And within that acceptance, you discover a deeper stability. Calmness is not found by controlling every outcome. It is found by understanding your role within each moment and fulfilling it with awareness. When you stop resisting what is and start acting wisely on what you can influence, your mind becomes lighter, clearer, and more steady. And in that steady state, no situation feels overwhelming because you are no longer divided within yourself. Most people move through life believing that their reactions are natural and unavoidable. They say, "This is just how I am," or "anyone would react like this." But this belief keeps them trapped. It removes responsibility and gives control to habits that were never consciously chosen. The truth is, your reactions are learned patterns, and what is learned can also be unlearned and refined. To be calm in every situation, you must understand that discipline is not about controlling the world around you. It is about mastering what happens within you when the world does not go your way. Every reaction begins as a small impulse. A word is spoken, a situation unfolds, and something inside you shifts. For most people, this shift immediately turns into action. Anger becomes words, frustration becomes behavior, fear becomes avoidance. There is no pause, no awareness, only reaction. And once the reaction is expressed, it cannot be taken back. It leaves consequences, both within you and around you. But if you train your mind, you begin to notice this impulse at its earliest stage. You catch the moment when irritation starts to rise. You feel the tension before it becomes anger. You recognize the discomfort before it turns into fear. This awareness gives you a choice, and that choice is where discipline begins. Discipline is not suppression. It is not forcing yourself to feel nothing. It is the ability to feel everything, but not be controlled by it. When anger arises, you acknowledge it. Anger is present, but instead of letting it take over your words and actions, you remain steady. You breathe, you observe, and you allow the intensity to pass before responding. In doing so, you prevent a temporary emotion from creating a lasting consequence. This requires strength, not physical strength, but inner strength. Because reacting is easy, it is immediate and effortless. But choosing not to react, choosing to remain calm when everything inside you wants to explode, that is true discipline. You must also understand that not every situation deserves a reaction. Much of what disturbs you in daily life is minor, temporary, and insignificant in the larger picture. Yet the mind treats everything as urgent, as important, as something that must be addressed immediately. This creates unnecessary stress and drains your energy. A disciplined mind learns to let go. It asks, "Is this worth my peace?" And often, the answer is no. When you stop reacting to everything, you begin to conserve your energy. You become more focused, more stable, and more intentional. Your words carry more weight because they are not driven by impulse. Your actions become more effective because they come from clarity, not emotion. This does not mean you become passive. There are moments when a response is necessary, when you must speak, act, or take a stand. But even in those moments, your response can come from calmness rather than chaos. Firm, but not aggressive. Clear, but not emotional. Strong, but not reactive. This is the difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is unconscious and immediate. Response is aware and intentional. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Situations that once triggered you begin to lose their power. You no longer feel the need to prove, defend, or react instantly. You develop patience, understanding, and control. And with that control comes freedom. Because when your reactions are no longer automatic, You are no longer controlled by external events. You become the one who decides how to think, how to feel, and how to act. This is true mastery. Not controlling others, not controlling life, but controlling yourself. And when you reach this level of discipline, calmness is no longer something you struggle to maintain. It becomes your default state, present in every situation, no matter how challenging. Inner stillness is not something that appears suddenly in moments of chaos. It is something you cultivate consistently, quietly, and patiently over time. Just as the body becomes strong through regular training, the mind becomes calm through daily practice. Without this consistency, calmness will remain temporary, easily shaken by challenges and distractions. Most people only seek stillness when they are overwhelmed. They wait until stress, anxiety, or frustration becomes too heavy, and then they look for peace. But by that time, the mind is already restless, making it difficult to settle. This is why daily cultivation is essential. You prepare the mind in moments of ease so that it remains steady in moments of difficulty. To cultivate inner stillness, you must first create space in your life for silence. Your mind is constantly filled with noise, conversations, notifications, worries, plans. There is always something demanding your attention. And in this constant activity, the mind never gets the chance to rest. It becomes overstimulated, reactive, and easily disturbed. Silence is the medicine. When you sit in silence, even for a few minutes each day, you begin to reconnect with yourself. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. Thoughts will arise, distractions will appear, and you may feel the urge to get up and do something else. This is natural. It simply shows how untrained the mind has been. But if you remain patient and continue to sit, something begins to shift. You start to observe your thoughts instead of being carried away by them. You notice how quickly the mind moves, how it jumps from one idea to another. This observation itself is the beginning of stillness, because when you are aware, you are no longer lost. As you continue this practice daily, the mind gradually slows down. The thoughts become less intense, less frequent. The space between them begins to widen. And in that space, you experience a sense of calm that is not dependent on anything external. This is inner stillness. Reflection is another important part of this practice. At the end of your day, take a few moments to look within. Observe your actions, your reactions, your thoughts. Not to judge yourself, but to understand yourself. Where did you lose your calm? What triggered your emotions? What could you have done differently? This reflection strengthens your awareness and prepares you for the future. It helps you recognize patterns and gradually refine your responses. Without reflection, you repeat the same habits unconsciously. With reflection, you begin to grow consciously. Inner stillness is not about escaping life. It is about engaging with life from a place of balance. When your mind is still, you think more clearly. You act more wisely. You speak more thoughtfully. Even in the middle of a busy or challenging day, there is a quiet center within you that remains untouched. This center becomes your refuge. But like any skill, it requires discipline. There will be days when you feel too busy, too tired, or too distracted to practice. In those moments, remind yourself that this is when the practice is needed the most. Even a few minutes of conscious breathing, silent sitting, or mindful observation can make a difference. Over time, this daily effort transforms you. Stillness is no longer something you practice only when you sit quietly. It begins to accompany you throughout your day, in your conversations, in your decisions, in your challenges. You become less reactive, more grounded, less distracted, more focused, less restless, more at peace. And gradually, you realize that calmness is no longer something you try to achieve. It becomes a natural part of who you are. Because when you consistently nurture inner stillness, you are not just calming your mind, you are reshaping it. And a well-trained mind remains steady, no matter what situation arises.